Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. You are live with Endeavor Gaming, and today we have a super awesome stream planned. Today we have on the air in Discord the executive producer of Star Trek Online, Thomas Marrone. So we are going to be talking all things Star Trek Online, starships, and more. So without further ado, let's just go on ahead and get into it. Here we are back in Star Trek Online, and welcome in, Thomas. And I realized I forgot to hit the undeafen. There we go. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey everybody. How's it going?
Welcome back to the channel. It is always awesome having you on the air.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. I want to start off real quick by saying that I love all your the videos you do of our ships and the trailers and stuff that you put together. It's all fantastic work, and it's one of the reasons that I love being a Star Trek fan and I love being a part of a community of people who are so passionate and creative at a very high level. The quality bar that people like you put into their work, professionalism and excellence. It's awesome. So thank you for loving the game, for playing the game, for making all that stuff. It's a huge reason that I do what I do, and a huge privilege to me to see people, to inspire other creative people. I think that is the biggest compliment that one creative person can get is when they inspire other creative people to be creative and to make stuff. So I just wanted to start at the top of the stream with that because it's really cool what you guys put together.
Thank you so much. I absolutely love making those videos. I got into it about 2 or 3 years ago. Started messing around
Hmm.
in a demo record, and I've just had a ton of fun doing it, getting to capture the ships as they come out, and then going back and getting to see a lot of these ships up close has given me even more appreciation of them. I think a lot of the ships that I fly and stream are because I'll, think about what I'm going to do a video on next, and I'll think, oh, this ship looks really cool. I want to fly this thing now. And then I spend, a
Nice, yeah.
week's worth of streams flying in just some random ship because I just think it looks awesome. And your work and the work that the STO art team has done has been incredible. I have a couple of these ships pulled up here in demo record. A
Awesome.
bunch of the ships that you worked on, and I wanted to start with one in particular, one that I have come to love so much, and one of your first works on Star Trek Online for ship
Yeah.
art, the good old Pathfinder class.
Yeah. Which has now been canonized, right? In Star Trek Picard, it ended up being the Voyager B, which I was not expecting. That was really really cool that they did that. Um, yeah, this was the first Federation ship that I designed and modeled for STO. And I had contributed some ideas to the Odyssey class when it was being developed. I actually contributed some ideas to the Venture class, way back in the day. But this was pretty soon after I joined the ship team, um, the first, I think I said this on another stream, but the very first ship I did was actually the Vadwar fighter. And then this was the second ship that I did, but it was the first Starfleet ship, and I also got to like design it myself, which was really special. And you know, the version we're looking at now is a remaster. I remastered back in 2021, I think, for the Terran Gambit arc. And that arc was a great excuse to go back and remaster a lot of the STO original ships, the T6 ships we had done, to remaster them for the Terrans, but also for the players. It was we had done such incredible work with all the 10th anniversary starships, and really hitting just an insane level of quality and fidelity to the canon material that I wanted our original ship designs, like the stuff that we made up, to start to match that. And I wanted them to feel like if you put this next to, the Voyager or the Galaxy class, the Intrepid or Galaxy class, or some of the other remasters we had done of the canon ships, that this would feel right at home and it would have the same attention to detail that those ships had. Now, those ships were built based around like 6 feet, models built by ILM over the course of months, right? Um, and but so there's a lot of like when you're doing that, there's a lot to pay attention to. And so if you zoom in on the Pathfinder, you'll start to notice there are little like decals, little tiny decals and stuff, little like rectangles and little like pill boxes and little like dots, and all that stuff is hand placed. Like that's not baked into the hull texture. That's all stuff that I put there specifically to emulate the look of the Voyager studio model. Um, and that kind of thing. It's stuff that like most players don't see or notice, but I think you feel that detail. And certainly when people like you go and make demo record videos of these ships, you guys get really close. You guys scrape the hull, and so you do start to see that detail come alive. Um, yeah, yeah, it's a like Borges said in the chat, it's exactly what it is. It's a texture sheet that has all these little decals on it, and so you just rip them off and you place them all over. It's actually my favorite part of building ships is when you get to the very end and you can like really detail it out and make it come to life.
I know one of the big things that I've noticed is with a lot of these ships, I mean, the Pathfinder was obviously one of those very early ones, the Pathfinder for a lot of the ships that came after, but a lot of the stuff that went into this ship's design was, then kind of carried forward in future
Hmm.
starships. I really like how, for the Stow era designs, you can look at a ship like the Pathfinder and then jump over to, say, something like the Andromeda and see, similarities and small things
Yeah.
between them. Like, the RCS thrusters here are similar between the Andromeda and the Pathfinder and the Yorktown over there, and it's really cool seeing kind of how different designs of stuff carry across the different classes, both from an in-game perspective of these ships all share that same design language, and then in I guess the wider lore of Star Trek, a lot of these ships are obviously being made by the same teams of engineers. You have everybody from, say, Utopia Planitia who are designing different sets of ships, people at San Francisco Fleet Yards or any other shipyard that's working on these designs. I think it's really cool finding those little similarities between them.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. You want to like you want the universe to feel connected and big, and one of the ways that you do that is have these like design languages that imply a function, right? Like and Star Trek is awesome. It's one of the things I love about ship design in Star Trek is because Starfleet ships anyway, I can point at anything on the Andromeda and I can kind of tell you what it's for, right? Like I kind of know that's a transporter relay, that's a radiator, that's a RCS thruster, that's that's the warp grill, that's the buster collector, that's the impulse engine, right? Like there's a language here that has been pretty much consistent, even if you go all the way back to like some of this stuff has been around since TOS, and then they kind of iterate on it, expand on it, add more things as you go. Um, but that function brings the universe to life. It brings the ships to life. It means that you can do crazy things with the ship design language, but as long as you keep those details the same, it can bring weird stuff in, like the Typhon, right? Like the Typhon is from Star Trek Invasion, and it's this big brick of a ship. It's actually a small brick, but it's a brick anyway. And it doesn't look anything like a normal Starfleet ship in its overall silhouette, but it succeeds, I think, in being a Starfleet ship because they added all those little details onto it, the Starfleet decals, the escape pods, the buster collectors, and the certain types of windows and all these things that make it feel contemporary to the Sovereign class, that you buy it, that even though it looks more like a something from Star Wars just by the shape, the silhouette. Yeah, you but you put that next to Sovereign, and then you can see how they are related and how they're from the same fleet because all those details hold the design together. Um, so it's something I think about, and I do have like sort of very, very vague kind of headcanon about like the weirder Starfleet ships in the weirder T6 STO era ships. They might be like Andorian built or something, like the Pathfinder and the Andromeda. Those might be built in like Andorian shipyards. Maybe the Andromeda is actually like a Vulcan shipyard or something. And then you have the Odyssey, which is, Utopia Planitia. And so, that's kind of things I keep in my head just to explain like why there are similarities, but there are also pretty big differences. And the cells are really different. The way the ship is organic or not organic, where the straight and curved lines are, how it treats its saucer and hull, all those things, like they kind of look related, but more like cousins than sisters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
remember
so
that we
that's,
had
yeah.
talked about that a little bit, and in I think it was the original lore blog for the Typhoon when it launched, it called out being from the Lycan shipyards at Andoria.
Hmm.
I thought that
Hmm.
was a really, really nice touch.
Yeah, and that was I don't know if I wrote that or not, but the because I think I have that for, I think that's a Pathfinder too. Made the Pathfinder be from the Lycan shipyards. I'll have to look it up. But again, it's remembering that like the Federation is it's a kind of a salad bowl of cultures, and even though you're a Vulcan, you're still part of the Federation, and you're making a ship for Starfleet. So it's going to look like a Starfleet ship, but it's also might have its own little signature style, which is, I think, maybe a little teaser for the ship bundle, the 16th anniversary ship bundle I'll throw out there. And I won't say anything about it anymore. But if people um, are quick, they can connect the dots of what I might be saying for some alternate skins.
My curiosity is definitely piqued. I have to try and stick to my things instead of just
Hmm.
guessing at what the ship is now. I mean, I know that at least for me, I am a huge sucker for ship lore. Around the time I
Hmm.
started getting into this game more seriously and kind of jumping into the world is when we were getting a lot of, I'd say, more world building around stuff. It was during the peak of the Iconian War happening, so we had things like
Hmm.
Tales of the War, and then I started going back and reading things like the Jace's Interstellar things that you had worked on, and
Hmm.
I still have the PDF of it, but the Jace's article on the Pathfinder is still one of my favorite reads of all time. It's
Wow.
it was such a cool article. Like,
uh, Thanks. I would love to go back and remaster that now that we've redone the Pathfinder, right? Like the model's updated. I'd love to go remaster that and maybe add more to it. I just obviously don't have a ton of free time these days. But well, I'm really glad that you dig that, and it's really important to me too, is the world building, because at the end of the day, if you if you're a certain kind of Star Trek fan, you want to believe in the Star Trek universe as a place that you can go to, as a place that you can live in, and um, and so telling stories about the ships and about Starfleet as an organization and not just, like the character, like the storytelling is firstly about character, right? And those conflicts. But there is a whole part of that that if you build a interesting world around it and you lay that foundation, then you start to recognize opportunities for even more interesting character-based stuff, because characters, like people, react to the circumstances they're in, right? Nobody's a vacuum, right? And so if you understand the circumstances of the world, which is what I would call world building, you can then use that to inform um, the how your characters are making choices, or the the like the situations they find themselves in are organic from the world, and the way they react to it tells you about that character. And I think it just gives you a lot of really organic, interesting, and sort of honest opportunities for storytelling. And some of it is truly just hyperfixation for really cool spaceships, right? Like that's where a lot of it comes from. But I think that um, but also that's why world building and understanding the world that you're playing with is important, and it gives you opportunities that you wouldn't have if you didn't think about that. I will say that, some of the greatest world building in science fiction is like Babylon 5 has great world building. The Expanse is one of my all-time favorite shows. There's a show on right now called For All Mankind. Incredible. And then I do wanna call out Starfleet Academy, that like Starfleet Academy has some actually really cool world building that's building off of reacting to everything that happened in Discovery season 3 through 5. They're examining the consequences of all that stuff in a way that I think is really satisfying. So that's been kind of a really delightful um, I don't know if I want to use the word surprise, but I wasn't quite expecting them to lean that hard into it. And so I do, if you're interested about what happens in the very, far future of Star Trek post Discovery and everything, I think Starfleet Academy is delivering on that premise really well.
I've really been enjoying Academy because it's showing this post-burned civilization where, you have all of this really advanced technology, but there's still so much to do in this world too, that there's
Yeah.
still stakes. I think it reminds me a lot about like Enterprise and TOS. It gave me a lot of those vibes just because you have this show where, you're in the future. You have the technology to do all these amazing things, but there's also still struggle, whether that's, between individual characters in the show or like this
Hmm.
wider universe that they're a part of. And I think it's doing a really good job of kind of showcasing all of that.
Awesome. Yeah. No. I agree. I'm excited. I'm actually an episode or two behind, but I need to get into it. Because I think there's a new one today, and I hadn't had a chance to watch last week's yet. But been too busy doing interviews like this. But it's no, it's great. I mean, it's great to talk to people. I know it's very exciting time for STO. Just having launched a new update. Um, and then with Jack on board, and me kind of taking over the executive producer's chair. Um, Lots of changes, but we still got to keep making the game, right? And so like finding that balance has been it's been interesting. But here's the thing: is I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about the game. I'm passionate about our relationship with you guys. I know every I do want to speak a little bit and say, like, every release we have our challenges we are doing, and I think we've done our best to respond to those quickly this week. And we'll have more for you guys to come on some of the issues that came up with the lockbox. Stay tuned for some of that. We're going into an ad now, looks like.
Okay. It should be over in about a minute, it looks like.
Hmm. So well, I don't want to say anything while the ad's going on. I don't want to say anything like super substantive, but
I'll take this opportunity to zoom in on another one of my favorite ships, the Yorktown class.
mhm.
This is definitely another one that's been, super high on my list of all-time favorite starships.
Nice. Yeah, I don't think I can see your stream in Discord. I have it up on the um
I have a
apologies for the
potential
subscribers.
solution to that.
We're just kind of waiting for the I see it up in the little pic.
Oh, that did not work. I may have just crashed Discord by doing that. I totally crashed Discord by doing that. 1 second while I get everything back.
Ads over for other people, then you are in better shape than me.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. I
Okay.
decided to click a button thinking it would make things better, and it did the opposite of that, as
Oh
it
no,
turns out.
I'm gone.
So the
You
one
threw me
time
out
I
the
didn't have
airlock.
anything break during the stream, it did break
Uh-huh.
because I did something.
No. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yep, they can hear you. They just can't
Okay,
see
cool.
you at the
It's
moment.
yeah, it's a little there's a delay, right? So I'm not sure if okay. All right. Um what are we doing here? So we got the Yorktown up. Yes, the Yorktown. This was it was really funny because I remastered the Yorktown before I redid the Odyssey, and then I got mad at myself because like, well, now the pre-refit Odyssey looks better than the Yorktown that I just remastered. Because I did, I put so much detail into that Odyssey for Picard, and I'm still proud of the Yorktown. I think it's cool and everything. And there's not really anything I would change necessarily, but it is funny to me that like we kind of have to lean into that Picard version of the Enterprise F because it's canon, right? Because it was official. And that means that the Yorktown maybe isn't getting as much of a spotlight as she would have otherwise. Um, but the doing the tier 6 version of um the Enterprise F was a lot of fun, like figuring out in the lore. Like it just so happened that we had the Iconian lore and had that opportunity to say, oh, it got really damaged, it got really beat up, and now we're revamping it. And uh, so I'm really pleased with how all that came out from a lore perspective and just from I think a ship design perspective. I was really trying to channel the Excelsior refit, with the Yorktown, by extending out the Excelsior refit has those extra impulse engines. So that's why the Yorktown has some really big impulse engines kind of bolted onto the back of the saucer. Um, the forward swept pylons, that was kind of a choice to, I like it personally. I know some people don't. But that was really just a choice to just make it different. Like it needed to look different, had of not just look different, but have a different silhouette so that when you see it from a distance, you can see what's different about it, right? And then the wider nacelles, those are kind of um, the analogy there in my head was um, TOS TMP, right? What is the difference? What's the TMP version of the Odyssey nacelles? And so that's why these are a little more rectangular. Um, and it was interesting when I did the remaster, like how to maintain that design of that really wide nacelle, but also keep the kind of minimum proportions or minimum size elements that still gave the ship scale. Because one of the things that ruins scale on big ships is if all the elements are too thick. Ironically, if you have something that's huge and you want to show scale, the best way to do it is to cover it with a bunch of tiny things, right? Like if you think about a Star Destroyer in Star Wars, that's the easiest example. Or just an aircraft carrier in real life. You look at an aircraft carrier and then you see all the little tiny little antenna that are all over it, or all the little tiniest lifeboats. If you can see people walking in the deck, you see how big they are. You can see how small the planes are, right? All that, like, this is all stuff that like most people don't think about, but you just internalize by existing in the world and being exposed to these things. And so the challenge as an artist is um, you have to make deliberate decisions about things that other people take for granted, right? You have to understand that's how skill works, and then you have to execute that in your work. And that has to be a choice you make. And so that's what kind of separates great chip designs to, kind of, it's, the word mediocre is maybe mean, but the stuff that is just kind of, it exists, but it doesn't like stick in your mind. The stuff that sticks in your mind is stuff that has been like everything about it is thought through, and you're thinking about function, and you're thinking about scale, and you're thinking about silhouette, and how do I remember this? How do I make this different from other things? And that's one of the great things that's so beautiful about Star Trek and Star Trek ships is it's kind of easy mode, like making a Star Trek ship or a Federation ship. In one way, it's kind of easy mode because you're starting with that iconic silhouette of the original Enterprise that Matt Jeffries came up with, and that gives you something that is very distinct and very like you can squint from a distance and you can still tell, oh, that's the Enterprise or that's a Starfleet ship, right? Like we look at like if you pull back really, really far from the Yorktown and you zoom really, really far away from it, you can still see the different parts of the ship, right? You can still resolve in the cell and the saucers and the hull. And you can do that with any of these like traditional Starfleet ships. And that's what that iconic arrangement um, was such a strong foundation that we're still using it 60 years later. Like the Athena is still really, when you boil down to it, still has those same elements, right? Like it's incredible. And that's the power of the silhouette. It's how important a good silhouette is to design, is to ship design, and is to Star Trek ship design. So, yeah. So we're lucky that we work in Star Trek in a universe where that's very clearly outlined for us, and it's very easy for us to pick up that mantle and go forward with it. But it's also just really cool.
That is so true. I'm gonna cut over to this screen real quick while I pull up a different demo because I want to talk about more the, I guess, legacy of these Star Trek ships in general. Let's see. Hopefully, I have the demo that I'm looking for here, and I am so afraid that I lost it, but hopefully this is the right one. I'm unfortunately pretty terrible at naming my files. So I have like 8 different copies of one demo, and then they all just have some string of numbers after them, and then I get to have the fun of trying to remember which one was which. My first guess was wrong, so we're going for the second time, which I'm sure will be the charm. I mean, Flo, I saw what you put in chat, and that's not too far off from how I name my files, unfortunately. Okay, the second
Shout out
one.
to our lead concept artist Adria, who did this great key art of Esri and the Chimeran hand you see there.
So this was from a video I think I did last year on
Mm-hmm.
the Picard season 3 fleet formation thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was going back and looking at this, how well like the STO ships kind of fit into the design language with the ships that, were either from previous Star Trek media or were designed specifically for the show. And
Yeah.
they all kind of share a lot of those similarities. And it made me realize that, like, for now, the, I guess, sort of running theme of the 25th century ships, the Star Trek Online originals are, a huge part of that. And it's been really cool to see because, there was season 2 when we got the Andromeda and the Reliant and the Gagarin.
Mm-hmm.
And then in season 3, kind of doing a flashback to, I think it was our previous interview, It
Well, it wasn't
was
the sorry, it wasn't the Andromeda, it was the Sutherland.
the
The
Sutherland. Thank you.
Andromeda unfortunately hasn't been.
Yeah,
It's not canon. I would love for it to be canon someday because the Andromeda obviously came first. I like to think that the existence of the Sutherland implies the Andromeda, um, but uh, since we also see the Ross, which I'm very happy that was canonized, by the way, it could be that the Sutherland happened before the Andromeda, in that version of the timeline. I mean uh, you know, uh, the ship timeline because of Picard is super wonky. Because originally these ships were, all the STO T6 ships were supposed to really be new for 2409, 2410. And so we have to kind of tie ourselves in pretzels a bit, but it's worth it. I mean, I have to say it's worth it because getting those ships Canada. I wasn't gonna say no, guys. Like I was gonna say, well, actually, we're not gonna do that because
it
this
would
ship
mess
shouldn't
with the
be around for another
timeline.
10 years. Like I can't. Sorry, I wasn't. I'm not that strong. And that's and then like when Dave asked about the Enterprise F, um, that did like I have to admit that camera like I did think about it. I'm like, well, it shouldn't be around because it's like you don't be an idiot. Like get it in there. um, but thankfully, yeah, like we had already done that collaboration with IDW where they used an Odyssey class for the USS Verity, which was Picard's flagship in the Picard Countdown comic. That was the ship that Picard was going to use to lead the refugee fleet that was going to help, rescue the Romulans before the supernova, and then of course the synth attack on Mars happened, and that all got scrapped. And so I did for IDW and for that issue I did this whole lore breakdown of like, okay, well, if there's an Odyssey class USS Verity, but we also have the USS Odyssey or the Enterprise F Odyssey class being brand new in 2409, like, how the hell do you square that circle, right? And so I did my best, um, and uh, you know, it's like not to put too fine a point on it, but it's all made up, right? Like none of it's real, but which is a bummer, but it also gives us freedom to be creative and to try things and to think about these problems in interesting ways and be flexible and adapt as circumstances change. And so I like to treat it as real. I like to think about it as if it were real, how could all these things interact or how could we fix these problems or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can't lose too much sleep over it, right? In the words of Mystery Science Theater, repeat to yourself, it's just a show. We should probably just relax.
I saw that Bort brought up Yard 39, that shipyard that was lost from the cloud of baryonic radiation. And we had talked about that in, I think, a previous interview I'd had you on the channel for. And
Hmm.
that stream always sticks out to me because it was before Picard season 3 had come out. And, we were talking about those, and I think we were talking about the stow ships that had already, made their way to canon in season 2 of Picard. And
Hmm.
at that point it was the Odyssey class isn't going to show up in Picard. And
Yeah.
then it was, I think, right before the video was going to premiere on YouTube, that first trailer came out. And
Yeah.
I was sitting at home and I
Yeah.
just see my Discord start blowing up. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And the first
Yeah.
ones were, oh my god, did you see it? And then there was
Right.
one from one of my friends who was with me while I was editing that interview together. And it said, ah, Endeavor, you're going to have to make some changes to that video.
Yeah, I mean, as people in chat are talking about the Yard 39, and that's funny because I came up with Yard 39 for the lore blog about when we started introducing Discovery ships, and I wanted to the goal there was to explain why you have all these like pre-TOS era ships that you never see again, right? You never see the McGee or the Shepherd and we know why. We know the real reason why is they weren't designed yet. They were designed for for Discovery, and that takes place. But like, but compare that to the Miranda and the Excelsior and the Constitution, right? Which you see for decades. So you see dozens of them, hundreds of them. And it's like, okay, well, why didn't Starfleet, like, could there be an in-universe reason why Starfleet didn't have any of these other ships? And it turns out there was probably a better, like, I could have come up with something better than Yard 39. I mean, one of the things that contributed to it was just the Klingon War. A lot of their ships were destroyed, just straight up destroyed in combat, right? With the Klingon, the war that um, happened after Takuvma was killed. Um, and so Starfleet lost a lot of those ships then. But the R-39 thing, well, maybe the ones that were left were kind of in this shipyard, and then something happened and they had to be abandoned, and then they could, and then Starfleet found them again in the STO area, and that's why they're coming back. Like that's why they're relevant again. Um, and and it's funny because I was solving a problem then, but in the intervening years, we've also gone to the extent of trying to bring some of those families into the lore more with the Kerala, right? The Kerala is a TMP era Gagarin, or Shepherd, I guess I should say. And so that we're connecting that thread, and so we can say, okay, well, so that's trying to kind of solve that problem in another way too, of where you don't see a version of the ship in the shows, but now in STO we do have uh, an era filled in for that wasn't before.
Sure, and I'm really glad that you mentioned the Corolla because I wanted to jump a little bit over to something that I know that we talked about before, but that absolutely amazing era of starships that is the TMP era. It's such a cool design language of starships, and we've gotten a ton of like really, really, really cool designs. Actually, got the perfect demo for that. I mean, because I think the last time we talked was, I think, right after the anniversary bundle with the Arc Royal had come out. But since
Mm-hmm.
then, we got another TMP bundle that had like the Okinawa, the Proxima, which has been one of my favorite ships personally. I think I've got it over here, the old Proxima 2. And I hadn't played a lot of the games where these ships had originally come out, but
Mm-hmm.
I just absolutely started loving them once I saw them in game. And I got to learn, a lot more about kind of where they came from. Not to, I guess, age myself here, but I think all of the games that those ships came from came out before I was born.
Uh-huh.
A lot of those
Well,
90s
and I think,
games.
yeah, like, but I'm really glad that we have an opportunity in Stowe to bring them out for people like you who never got to play those games, or didn't know they existed or whatever beforehand. And when we were doing the Heritage Bundle, it was, well, actually no, when we did, well, both. So the Heritage Bundle, we got to talk to James Swallow, who is a writer on Star Trek Invasion. Had a great interview with him, and he was really emotional about seeing somebody remember that he did that work, and like honoring that work and bringing it to life in a new way. And shoot, I forgot this guy's name, but it was Starfleet Command 2, the guy who designed the Okinawa and modeled the Okinawa, and I think the Ark Royal. We had an interview with him, and he actually ended up being a producer on Kerbal Space Program. Like, he had a really cool career in the games industry
Oh,
after that.
wow.
But it was an awesome interview, and he was just tickled to see that people remembered that work. And I think people who are part of Star Trek, some of them underestimate the staying power of that and the impression it has on people. The impression it, like Starfleet Command 2 had on me as a high schooler. Like I took that with me my whole life, and now I'm in a position where I can kind of share that joy with other people, and make it, reinvest in it, and remaster it and bring it to life again in a way. And you know um I think that's one of the things I'm really proud of. for all of these, bringing all these ships back to STO that were in these other games. It's a tribute to that era of Star Trek gaming, which was the era I grew up in, and it's a kind of a salute to all those people who just made really cool stuff. And if I can contribute to the sort of longevity or immortality of their work, I'm really really happy and proud to do that.
I think seeing these ships from a
Mhm.
lot of these older games make their way into Star Trek Online has been absolutely incredible to see. And then for the TNP era, it's got a nice balance of not just, callbacks to previous Star Trek games, but we've also gotten a whole lot of really, really cool ones. And one that I want to highlight personally is that I guess it showed up in the comic first, but it was seen at kind of an off angle, and we didn't see it too much. But that TNP era Theseus, that was one of the extra costumes in a bundle, has been one that I have absolutely loved since it came out. I think
Yeah,
this was
yeah,
one that Scorpion had done the concept art for.
yeah. Jamie Scorpion Design did this one. I do want to call out Nate Simpson. Pundits in the chat said it was Nate Simpson who designed worked on Starfleet Command 2, and I had a great interview with Nate, and he was very complimentary too, which was great. Um, of the work we're doing in STO. But yeah, the Theseus that was created originally for Star Trek Year 5. And it was kind of yeah, you see just a couple views of it. And then the idea was then when they did the new Star Trek Unlimited series, I think it was just called Star Trek, but it was about Cisco coming back and captaining the USS Theseus. The idea is it's still the same ship. It's just been refit over and over again. I mean, literally a ship of Theseus, right? And so we had the original. When I say the original, I mean from the comic. I say original. That's not actually. It's the opposite of that. We had the TNG version first in the game, and then when we did this TMP bundle, I remembered that Theseus should have a TMP version, and so we tasked Scorp with reinterpreting the comic art into something that was kind of hit the fidelity mark that we have now, and felt at home alongside all of our other high detail ships, and they really just killed it.
Absolutely. And I forgot to actually zoom up to it, but when we were talking about the Crawler before, this is also one of my favorite ships out of that bundle. It is so incredibly sleek. I think the Shepherd was my favorite Discovery design. I just thought it looked so cool on screen.
Yeah, originally the Corolla was designed by it was our outsourcing partners at Virtuos, and then we got it, and it was cool, but it was missing. It was just missing those little touches that really bring everything together. And so Pundus did a lot of work on this ship to kind of bring it to life and hit the sort of personality and quality bar that we expect. Oh, hey, there's Casual SAB
Hey Spencer, thank you
rating.
for the raid. Welcome in everybody.
Hey, Raiders. Yeah, that's right. Scorp did a lot of paint overs, and there was a lot of back and forth on how to iterate on the design. One of the things that I think really brought it to life was the nacelles, actually, because the original treatment for the nacelles was much more standard, like Constitution refit, and it just didn't um, have like it didn't stand out enough. It didn't have its own identity, right? And so by bringing the grill all the way back, that kind of made it feel like some kind of interstitial between the Constitution refit and the Excelsior in a way that I think works really well with this ship. That because it's huge, right? The Corolla is actually much bigger than a Constitution.
Mhm.
Um, because those discovery ship scales, I mean, I'll just say it, they're weird. It's weird that those discovery ships are as big as they are. So, but we have to live with it. That's canon, and we have to make it work in STO. And so we have to have all these different versions of ships live next to each other. And so for the Corolla, we kind of, I think, accidentally got there, but I like the idea that it's sort of meant to be kind of a halfway between a Constitution and Excelsior.
I'm definitely a big fan of this one, and I think the Shepherd line in general is absolutely awesome because it has variants from so many different eras. Because you have the Discovery era with the base Shepherd, you have the TMP era with the Corolla, then you have the Picard era with the Echelon, and then you have the Gagarin. And I've seen a lot of really cool kit bashes with those ship pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's great when we can find opportunities to do that. And I will say that in the next ship bundle, there is a pretty interesting kit bash opportunity available for one of the ships. So people can keep an eye out for that.
So I did have a couple of questions. They were ones that were both asked over in the Discord and by some people who had questions about stuff. One of the big ones that weirdly I saw three separate times was talking about, ship Star Trek Online's ship roster includes starships from basically every single piece of Star Trek canon at this point. But they
Mhm.
always wondered what, I guess, the story was on ships from Section 31, the movie, because we don't see too many starships there in any like serious detail. I think we see the what do we see? We see the Terran flagship, I think, or at least part of it in the very beginning. They have that
Mhm.
Section 31 jumper that I think gets, and spoilers, sorry if you haven't seen the Section 31 movie, but it gets destroyed after a short period of time, and then they're in a garbage scow, I think, for the rest of the
Mhm.
runtime for the movie. But were there ever any thoughts about like trying to get that maybe Section 31 ship or even the garbage scow?
We talked about it. I mean, I'll be frank, we decided there are probably things that people want more than ships from that movie. So that's not a high priority for us. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. This is, um, but you know, I am excited about what we're doing this year. We are not doing any of that this year.
I know you had mentioned it on a previous stream, but because this is, both Enterprise's anniversary and Star Trek's 60th anniversary, that we would be seeing ships from every single era throughout the year. And I'm definitely really excited for that. I mean, I think all of the eras have a lot of, awesome starship design languages, and I also like how they're all unique in different ways. And Stowe has done
Mhm.
a great job at like making it clear what kind of eras each ship fits in. Like from here, all of these are TMP era ships, but you could see these in a vacuum, and most people who like love all of these ships in Star Trek Online could immediately point out, oh, this is, a ship from the TMP era, or oh, this is a 25th century ship for Stowe, or a Picard era ship, or, you know, a TNG era. And now we're getting, a couple of Lost era ships too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting more. I'll say that too.
Ooh,
So, that's very exciting.
I can't wait to do one of these demos
Or
with a bunch
I'll
of
say this, we're getting more Lost Area variants. How about that? Lost Era variants.
I'm a big
Um,
fan of Lost Era ships. I think they look really interesting. But I actually, and in a very rare thing for me, I want to pivot away a little bit from Starfleet ships, even though they are by far my favorites. And this is also light spoilers for, I guess, 3 episodes ago for Star Trek Starfleet Academy. But
mhm.
we did get three more ships from Star Trek Online showing up in Academy a few episodes ago. And I have, I think, the right ones pulled up here. And I wanted to ask how that came about because it was definitely a surprise. I remember seeing them in the trailer opening up, and we can probably talk about it after this ad break ends, which will also be over in
Mhm.
about a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Ads. Let's see. I mean, um, what should we talk about during ad breaks? I don't want to say anything substantive.
I like just
Uh,
looking at starships. I'll probably jump over to the Emchla refit and just kind of vamp
mhm,
about that one for a little bit because this
mhm.
was the 25th century reimagining of the Discovery era bird of prey,
Right. Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
got a
This.
very unique
Yeah.
design for sure.
Yeah. I'm really pleased with how this one came out. It was inspired by a conversation Mike Fadum had with me one day, where I think he had a model of the bird of prey from Discovery, and he was looking at it, or he showed it to me or something. He's like, "Hey man, like what if you took this? Oh hey, we can talk about it. We can talk about it now because we're done with the ads." Um, yeah, so the MSHLA refit, it was inspired by Mike Fadum, and he's happy to tell this story. But one day he came up to my desk, and I think he might have had a model of the original MSHLA bird of prey from Star Trek Discovery, which is like a very Geiger-esque, very black, like onyx obsidian kind of surface detail, very organic, like a kind of a spine. It's got a spine on the back of it. It's really weird. But it also has the bird of prey, like hunched forward wings. So Mike comes to my desk, and he's like, "Hey man, like, I know that Discovery Klingon ships are weird, but like, there's something cool here. Like, it'd be really awesome to see like what a um like put this through the like TNG era Klingon filter." And I think I drew like kind of what I was thinking on a piece of paper, just or maybe on the whiteboard or something, just to kind of get it out of my head. Because when he said that, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting exercise. Um, and then later we were doing the Klingon recruitment, and we needed a ship for that. And lore-wise, it made perfect sense to do something that was like an upgraded version of a ship from Discovery, because the Klingon recruit is, you're helping Ja'ula, right? She's unstuck in time, and um, you're you're kind of helping her. You're learning more about the Klingon, going through the Klingon story arc. And so the idea that part of Ja'ula's fleet that was transported from the Discovery era into the STO era, that like it makes sense that they would be upgraded right into the STO era technology. And so that I came back to, when we were talking about all that and what to do for the Klingon recruit and what ship we could do, I came back to that idea of upgrading a Discovery ship to TNG era, and I thought about what Mike suggested. And so I took that whole problem to E.C. Henry, who's an incredible 3D modeler and concept artist, and we've been privileged to work with him a few times, and I kind of told him to, like, hey, what, like, can you do this for us and design this for us? And he really attacked it and came up with something really cool. The MSHA refit has a great silhouette, but it also has all those details on it that still like makes it feel like it fits next to the bird of the Burrell bird of prey, or the Vorcha, or any of those other sort of contemporary Klingon ships. So yeah, it was. I love when we can do stuff like that. We can take ideas that percolate in people's heads for a very long time, and then just execute on them and bring them to life. And then they kind of become their own thing. And now it's canon, right? Now it's in Starfleet Academy.
Mhm. And now that we are back from the break, I want to talk about the fact that we have all of
Mm,
these ships that made their way into Starfleet Academy as part of that, I guess, Klingon fleet. I don't know exactly what to call it. It wasn't just, civilians moving. These ships were very much still warships in that too. They also had
mhm,
a few of the freighters, I think, carrying people and supplies, which was really cool to see.
mhm. Yeah, those were models from STO too. The
Oh.
the God, what's it? The Grumal. They have a different name for the Klingon version. The Klingon version is different. They have different. They actually have nacelles, and they're green instead of brown. But yeah, those were STO models. Yeah, I mean, I have a great relationship with Brian Tatoski, the VFX supervisor on Star Trek right now. Brian works on Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy, and he's also running the Ships of the Line calendar. And so I'm actually excited. I've got an image that'll be in the 2027 Star Trek Ships of the Line calendar. I had one in 2026 too. Actually, I think December this year is my image. So if you have one of those calendars, you can see it's the Enterprise F, obviously. But for but anyway, so I'm in touch with Brian occasionally, and for this, he contacted me and he was like, "Hey, we've got this big Klingon fleet for Starfleet Academy. Do you guys have any ships that it's supposed to be kind of old and run down? Like these are supposed to be old ships that the Klingons are um, that they've been able to cobble together and keep running, right?" And so that was great because that meant that that we didn't have to explain or feel weird about using STO era ships. Like when you look at them, they are supposed to actually be hundreds of years old. Um, and so taking that note, I put together a big list of basically a big like dope sheet of here's I think I gave him like eight or nine different options of models we had of like original ship designs that he could use. I even included some of the 26th century Klingon ships we had because those were a little more futuristic. And in the end, he chose these three. So we have the Kapu, which we're looking at right now, and then we have the Ketha Raptor. Both of those were designed by Hector Ortiz, legendary Hector Ortiz. And then finally we've got the enchilada that we just talked about. So yeah, it's when I'm really proud of the fact that not only did we get all those ships in season 2 and 3 of Picard, not only did we get the Enterprise F, but the Brian still wants to work with us and still wants to put our stuff into more Star Trek, which is awesome. It feels very validating, honestly. And I have to say that you all are a huge part of that. Like the community and how much you all talk about ships, the videos you share, the videos you make. The whole reason this happened was that the Dave Last production designer on Picard season 2 and 3, um, he knew he was going to need a lot of Star Trek, like a whole fleet of Starfleet ships, and he didn't want to redo the Inquiry fleet from the end of season 1, and so he started Googling Star Trek ships, and he kept seeing our ships, he kept seeing STO ships, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool. What's that from? Star Trek Online. Oh, that's cool. What's that from? Star Trek Online. Oh, that's cool. What's that from? Star Trek Online." And so he reached out to me because he saw that like we had we've been doing it for I think 13 years, 12 or 13 years at that point. We knew what we were doing. We were passionate about it. We had a great catalog, and that's really what opened the door for us. But if you all hadn't been so passionate to basically take over the zeitgeist of Star Trek ships with STO screenshots, that wouldn't have happened. So the community deserves a lot of credit for that.
This community is, absolutely fantastic. And I'll say that one thing that's definitely made working on those videos as much fun as it is seeing people like absolutely enjoy watching them. Like for a while, I was messing around in demo record just to kind of like see these ships up close, and then I slowly started learning how, the different camera paths and stuff worked. And then I started making these videos because I really liked, it's the YouTube channel. I think it was Zeph way back when would have a lot of those cinematic videos of the ships just with music in the background, and I would have those like running in the background while I was working on homework and stuff. And after I was in college, I had just graduated, and I really wanted to do stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I slowly learned the system, figured out how demo record worked, started making those videos, and I just found I had more and more fun with it each time.
Yeah.
And learning how to
No,
do new
that's
stuff in it has
awesome.
been so much fun.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and shout out to Zeph Films. I mean, I think he's moved on from STO, but um, incredible work. He really kind of a pioneer, I think, in the demo record
Hmm.
space, and the stuff he was able to do, just fantastic, and will leave a mark, on the community forever.
And I think one of the big things that he kind of inspired me to do was, I'd say, pushing the bounds of what you can do with that whole system. And I think one of the biggest things that I've loved getting to do is, making those cool formation shots of ships. And
Hmm.
this is one I used in the video that went live a little bit earlier this week, showcasing the Impersa and just getting a couple of the other Kittimer Alliance ships, which I'm also using as a very totally not clunky segue into talking about the Kittimer Alliance ships,
Yeah,
since we've
let's
got
do it.
this new one that is the event reward for this anniversary event that's running right now on PC, and I think starts March 10th on consoles.
I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, it's in March.
The Alliance ships have always been really, really, really cool to me. That kind of meshing of different, not just technologies within lore, but being able to see where the different species kind of added their own touches to things. I don't have the Kittimer in this one specifically, but that one was, the first one that we saw, and it was a really cool meshing of Federation and Klingon designs. You have
Hmm.
ships like the Rex, which are Federation and Dominion, so you can see a lot of like the stuff with the Defiant and the Jem'Hadar bug ship. You have the Temare, which was Romulan and Klingon. I think I've got that right.
Hmm.
The Jarok, which was Federation and Romulan, which is one of my personal favorites. I think that carriers are really, really cool. And while it is a bit of a stretch, I consider these two things right here hanger pods. And I've DM'd you more than once about my headcanon ship, so you know how I feel about hanger pods. As soon as
Yeah.
it has one, it's an immediate 10 out of 10.
Right.
So the Pollux are high up there on my list.
Yeah, so all of these ships, I believe that's right, all of these ships are designed by Hector. Um, and I have on my art station, I don't know if you've seen it, I have a breakdown of like the process of designing. It doesn't include the Garrett or the Impersa, but the everything up to the Jirok, I think. Or no, everything up to the Rex. I think it does talk about the Rex. Um, and you can go there, you can see some of the concept art that Hector did. You can see I think it's really cool. Like, I don't even know if you want to do this now or show people in the stream, but if you go there, you'll see very early concept art of where we started with the alliance ships and how far we took it. Um, because the original alliance ships was much more nondescript, I'd say, and much more inspired by kind of the wells and the 29th century like manta ray, like this is just kind of its own thing, which was cool, but it didn't tell the story immediately. And I remember we were doing all this uh we're doing all this early concept work and a lot of these sketches, and when I you know when we started this, I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be a tough nut to crack, but I wanted to do it because it was for the 10th anniversary, right? I believe that this was the 10th anniversary ship, and 10th anniversary of STO. I wanted with a ship to manifest something about the kind of the hopeful nature of Star Trek and talk about how far things in the universe have come. Where you would have, yeah, so if you're scrolling down, you can kind of see some of those drawings there on the Kittimer page. Um, that stuff, those numbered drawings, they're all like yeah. So if you just by the time after the Kittimer, we knew what we were doing, and we had a pretty good handle on the style. But for the Kittimer, you can see how early like they look nothing. Like there's nothing like where we ended up, and it was very experimental and very, I hate to say generic, but it kind of was because it was like, well, this sort of feels like a Star Trek ship, but it does. The, you don't look at it and see, oh, this is a Klingon-fed hybrid ship, and so after I kind of had that, 2 a.m. thought in my brain, I came back to Hector and said, we got to start over, and we got to make it like really obvious that this is part Klingon, part Fed, and we got to take the iconic things from like the D7 and the Enterprise and just mash them together, and that's going to tell the story. And it's like simplistic, but what Hector can do is he can take those simplistic ideas and really flesh them out. And God, I miss him. I mean, it's been great working with Scorp and Adria and Goka and our other concept artists, but Hector was he just so much of his genius has been baked into STO ship design over the years, and it was a privilege to work with him and learn from him. But he can take something like a very kind of basic dumb art direction of, hey, mash a D7 together with the Enterprise, and then he can take that and turn it into something beautiful and fully thought out and fleshed out and with its own style and material. And it's incredible. Like I'm really proud of the Kittimer. I'm really proud of this whole design language, and it's always fun to do more. Um, but uh, there's I just wanted to talk through that because it could have ended up very differently, right? Like we could have gone down that road of just trying to do something wholly new. But I'm really pleased that we were able to hit onto the importance of communicating the story with these visual choices that immediately you understand what you're looking at. And it was awesome because the Kittimer, this never happens that we like a ship we make just gets an article in Gizmodo, right? But Gizmodo made a whole article about the Kittimer, just the Kittimer, not really talking about like the content or the episode or whatever else. It was just like Star Trek Online's new ship is super weird, but I'm here for it, or and then it talked about how it's a Klingon fed design and everything. And so when you take big swings, like this was a very challenging task. But if you take them and then you land, like people will recognize that it'll go more broad than it would have if you kind of played it safe. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about with the Kittimer stuff, and I'm really happy the players responded to it and that they love it and that they keep wanting more because I want to keep making more. I think it's super cool, not only for how it looks, but also just for the story, um, how Star Trek that story is of people who are very different coming together to make something bigger than themselves and make something really cool and powerful. That's to me is part of the essence of why Star Trek storytelling is so compelling and important, and that we can manifest that aspect of it with a starship. I mean, that's awesome.
I think that the Kittimer is one of those ships that just represents some of the best of Star Trek in general, to be honest, because one of those, I think, common themes throughout Star Trek is the kind of age old battle between Starfleet and the Klingons. Like, if you look at just any era in Star Trek, at some point or another, the Federation and the Klingon Empire were fighting over something. You see it in Discovery, it's the ongoing thing throughout TOS. Even in TNG and DS9, this is still a thing. And even in Starfleet Academy, you see the tensions between the
Right.
Empire
Yeah.
and Starfleet are still pretty tense. But then you have the story in Stowe, and you have this whole overarching story. The game begins kind of at this sort of midway point in a Federation Klingon war that's been going on since like the mid 2400s. They're like
Yeah,
2404, 2405.
2405. Yeah,
And
2405 is when that started.
for people that, were in this game from launch or in this game earlier around the time it went free to play or something, that line between Starfleet and the Klingons is one that's just existed the whole time. And
Right.
everything that had happened in Trek had been they're two sides of a coin. And, those two sides of the coin will never be able to face each other. And then you finally have the Kittimer Alliance coming together, and you have this coming out of, a lot of the strife of the Iconian War. And it's just it's an amazing representation of where the galaxy is at in STO's timeline, I think, where all of these powers that throughout galactic history would never get along, not only cooperating, just in a, we're not fighting each other right now, but tensions are always high too. We have joint shipyards and we have scientists and engineers and admirals all working together to develop something that's not just, something to help secure their galaxy, but be a representation of people working together. And I think
Yeah.
Stowe's story has been absolutely amazing at that.
It's interesting because you can, you contrast. I love The Expanse. I mentioned it earlier. The Expanse has a very sort of quasi-pessimistic, I would say, view on quote unquote human nature, right? That maybe contrasts with Star Trek's optimistic um, standpoint. And you could say that Star Trek is naive by being optimistic. But you know, it if you've ever seen the God, it just the name just flew out of my head. Um, the the I'm losing everything. It's all going away. The that movie with Giorgio, what was her actress? I can't believe I can't remember her name.
Oh, Michelle Yeoh.
Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh. Yeah, yeah. The the multiverse movie where she yeah. So
Everything Everywhere All at
I'm
Once. Is that the
yeah, everything everywhere all at once. Thank you. It's incredible movie. It's an incredible movie. I'm sorry. I'm it's been a long week, like I said, so I apologize. You're kind of getting me after I've been worn down quite a bit, but everything everywhere all at once. There's an incredible line where her husband from another reality, he's like, you know, um, you might think that I'm dopey and happy and everything, and that I don't know any better. And he's like, I no, I do know better. I'm this way, like as a survival mechanism. I'm this way because I have to be, because if I, if I was, uh, if I kind of face the darkness of the world with my own darkness, right, I would die. I would lose myself. And so I think what's really cool about that philosophy is it is a choice in the face of everything to be a better person and to find happiness and joy and what's powerful about being a human is that you have that power, like you have the power to make illogical choices, um, and those if enough people do that, you can change the world, right? Because like it's easy for everybody to go with the flow, to accept the status quo, to do nothing. Um, but if enough people decide, I don't like the way that things are, and I'm going to, against all reason or logic, I'm going to put my own safety on the line, or I'm going to forgo my own comfort because I want the universe to change. Like that change can and has and will happen. And so I think, um, you have plenty of literature and film and TV that are about the base nature of people to just sort of move towards zero of I'm going to protect myself, I'm going to protect my immediate family, that's all I care about. And that's The Walking Dead, right? Like The Expanse, like that kind of thing. Although the heroes of The Expanse go beyond that, right? And then it's kind of a contrast between everybody else and them. But but I think what's cool about Star Trek is you have that attitude at scale. It's not just the heroes who feel that way, it's a whole society that feels that way. It's a whole the whole, I prefer to think about the Federation as something that is, I admit, fictional, but Star Trek is fiction. We established that it's an ethical superpower, right? And especially in the STO era, that they want to, and this is why I'm not really a fan of Section 31 as a concept. Whatever, we won't go there. But I like to think of Starfleet and the Federation as an ethical superpower, and that yeah, there are a lot of people. Yeah, they have a lot of like military might and capability, but they are choosing to use that in ways that are um, that don't just benefit them, right? That try to improve the life of everyone, or respect people's, inalienable, excuse the term, rights. Um, and so I think that's what's special to me about Star Trek, is that fantasy of a society that collectively has that progressive, selfless outlook. And what does that unlock? What kind of society can you live in if everybody feels that way, right? And I think that it's important for Star Trek to keep thinking about things like that and exploring that. And I know we got really far afield of ships here, but I see the Kittimer alliance itself and the story in Stowe as a manifestation of um, that like optimistic. We are able, like, people can set their differences aside. They can, instead of collapsing inward in the face of a big challenge, they can look outward and help each other, right? And understand that survival isn't about hoarding what little you have. It's about sharing with everybody else, and that lifts all boats, right? And so anyway, the I know we got off on a tangent here, but I think it's cool to be able to make our own little tiny statement about that and Stowe with the Kittimer Alliance and the Kittimer ships.
No, and I don't think we got off on a tangent at all. I'm absolutely loving this, and I think Best Laid Plans is also like an absolutely amazing representation of this. Like, I wish you could go back in time to the first year of the game and say, hey, one of these days you're going to do a mission where your captain beams aboard Deep Space Nine and has this big meeting with the Alliance captains, which include, the flagship captain of the Klingon flagship, the Bordescu, the Romulan Republic flagship, the Lisette, and the Starfleet flagship of the Enterprise. And you kind of see in that mission, like, they've not only gotten totally okay with working together and doing stuff. It seems like it's something that they've done before. Like, it feels like you're kind of jumping in on their story a little bit when you're fighting Zildat Bex on board the Harmony. But they're kind of bantering to each other. They're making jokes. They're like, let's dethrone this drone, I think is the line. And it's just I think it's a really cool little story aspect that a lot of people might
Mm,
look over, but it's crazy to think about that you have these three at one point warring powers all working
right.
together. And I mean, just to make the galaxy a better place, ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a fun mission to work on, and it was a fun mission to break out with Flo and our creative director at the time, Rich and Jeremy, and talk about, like, hey, we have these characters that people like Corin and Turok and Sean, and there's lots of fan art of them. Like, we should bring them back and remind people that they exist, and so it was really great. I'm really pleased with how that turned out, and I'm glad that people enjoyed it too.
Absolutely fantastic mission. And definitely, I'm not going to get too far into spoilers because it hasn't launched on console yet and it's only been out on PC for a couple of days. But the most recent mission that launched earlier this week has been absolutely incredible, and I think builds on that in a lot of ways. And I'm gonna use this time to vamp a little bit more and jump back into the Impersa, but you have this ship that clearly has its roots in, the Dominion, tying into that previous lore blog that Flo worked on that was talking about why the Dominion wasn't around in Best Laid Plans. You find out that they're dealing with their own host of problems from Aetherian sabotage and stuff. And in the meantime, they've been developing this kind of super ship to face the threat head on. And it's really cool kind of watching all of these puzzle pieces like lead together because it doesn't always feel like it's necessarily leading somewhere. First it was just, oh, the Dominion's not here in Best Laid Plans, I wonder what they're doing. Then it was, okay, this lore blog is talking about why they weren't there in Best Laid Plans. And then you have this ship, which I think in its paragraph blurb about it kind of makes mention, referencing back to that lore blog of, oh, the Dominion has been working on this. And you kind of have all these different plot points lining together. And at the other end of it, you have this, absolutely amazing ship, in my opinion. This thing is really, really cool. And I mean, the word I would use to describe it is a juggernaut, which is what it is. It's, I think, probably has more mass than the Jarok, since the Jarok is mostly negative space on the inside towards the
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
This is also, I
Yeah, for
think,
people who are
hmm,
stuck in ads, we were just talking about the Impersa and how much like how it has more mass than the Turok.
hmm.
It's longer too.
This is also, I think, the first juggernaut that is in something that's not a lockbox. There's a couple of juggernauts in the game. There's the most recently the Trafalgar, which is an absolutely incredible ship. That's the TMP Excelsior inspired variant of the Atlas. And then
Yeah,
you've got the Viridian Juggernaut, the big Emerald Chain ship from Discovery Season 3.
right.
Um, the Vadwar Juggernaut, which is a fun ship and is one of my favorite parts of the Battle of Corfez because that thing is so much fun to fight. I think it's a really cool like ship boss
Mhm.
fight because it's so tanky.
Yeah. I mean, Juggernauts are fun. I think the Vador was the first one we made, if I recall right, and it has that lance and everything. Um, and it's cool. I mean, I always get excited when Jeremy's like, "We need to make a new ship type." I'm like, "Yeah, more." It's because it's hard. It's actually hard. My understanding, it's actually pretty difficult to do that. Um, but anytime we do that, it's I think exciting to just kind of expand out the inventory, right, and make little distinctions and new types of ships for people to explore.
Definitely. I mean, I haven't flown this ship yet. Unfortunately, I just have it loaded up in demo record, but I'm super excited to fly this thing. And I guess also along with that, I haven't talked too much about it yet, but this is, I think, a really good time. We have another new ship that launched on Tuesday. The Harmony class
Mhm.
is now available and it's lockbox. And I somehow don't actually have a demo of the Harmony. That's crazy.
No, no.
How have I gone this long without making a demo of the Harmony? I'm disappointed in myself. And I made a video for it. I'm pretty sure I just like captured it from a mission because it wasn't a playable ship in game yet. So
Hmm.
I think I just took one of its appearances. I think when it was at Ramizad from Axiom and used that to make the video.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, the Harmony, all of the Ethereum ships were designed by Hector. And the some of the I think only one Chimeran ship was designed by him. That was the battleship, the long the long one. Um, the it was fun making those Chimeran ships though. because it was the brief was really like, what if a Borg cube got cancer? Like, and that's really all it was, but I think it worked really well. And we looked at some minerals that had a really like cool cubic crystallization pattern and everything. Um, yeah. Yeah, but here's the Harmony. Like I said, this is designed by Hector. I think this was the first ship we designed because we had to have it in Taken by Surprise. Is that the episode?
Yeah, because it shows up at
Um,
Starbase One at the very end there.
yeah. And you know, it's it was we always knew the Iconians or excuse me, we always knew that the Etherians were a flavor of Borg, and then very early, um, we talked about. I think I pitched the idea of them being Iconian Borg because for both the Chimerans and the Iconians, excuse me, for both the Chimerans and I really am, I really am losing steam here. For both the Etherians and the Chimerans, it was important to me to have some connection to the larger STO lore. And like, yeah, it's cool that they're Borg from alternate universes, but what does that mean? And then obviously the how important Iconians are to the STO story meant that, like, oh man, if we make a version of the Borg that was sort of not assimilated, but I think Flo maybe coined the term fused, um, fused with the Borg into something wholly different and terrifying. And that's something that Al Rivera, I mean, like the concept of the Etherians being the this very angelic, benevolent seeming race. That was all Al Rivera. Like that was a very foundational idea. And then my spin on that was, well, what if we made them Iconian hybrids because the Iconians are very like science, is magic, like science so advanced it feels like magic. They're a big villain in STO's history. Like they're scary. Players are used to their machinations and stuff. Like they're manipulative. So like a lot of it really, when we started talking about it, thinking about it, like it just made a lot of sense with the goals that Al had, and so we ran with it, and we had a ton of fun. Hector had a ton of fun designing their the creature, the Ethereum creatures themselves, to make them like if you look at them now and you know that they're Iconians, you can totally get it, right? It's super
Hmm.
easy to see, and some people did make that connection, but I think it was enough. I think it was obscure enough that it didn't that we still felt satisfied when that reveal happened, Um, but anyway, the Harmony, I mean, it's we knew it wanted to feel like a Borg ship once you learned it was a Borg ship. And so that's why we kind of have this very basic, like, inverted pyramid shape. Um, but we also wanted something that had a sense of direction so that we could let players fly it. And then all the 4D stuff going on, the spinny triangle stuff, um, uh, that's all really a reference to the Ethereans, like mastery of the different dimensions and being like nth dimensional, and that there's mass of this ship that's passing from the dimensions we perceive into other dimensions. And like we watched a lot of mind-bending videos about what like a fourth dimensional being perceives, um compared to, or fifth dimensional or whatever, because I think some people say that time is a dimension, right? So humans would
Hmm.
be fourth dimensional because we can perceive, length, height, depth, uh and time. um but like we watched a lot of videos about, like, okay, if you're a two-dimensional, if you're aware of two dimensions, this is what it looks like when somebody who is three dimensions interacts with you, right? And it's like really hard to wrap your brain around it, but we tried to, like, okay, and then there are people who then explain, okay, if you're fifth dimensional, what does somebody who is only fourth dimensional, what do they perceive? And so that kind of, um, that's where we get kind of these spinny things that are growing and phasing and disappearing. The idea is that we're just sort of seeing part of it as those parts interact with our dimensions.
Hmm. I remember I was
Stream
talking to
stop.
a couple of my friends about this
Oh, we're
ship the
good.
first time we saw it, and I think the phrase that somebody had said that stuck with me for a while is that when the Harmony showed up and we got to like see it for the first time, the ship looked friendly but not inviting. And
Right,
I
yeah.
think that that
That's
kind
really
of
great.
held true through like all of Axiom. You know, you go into the Harmony during that mission, and the whole thing feels like it's this friendly space. They've got some tables, they've got some furniture and things like that, but it never feels inviting because the whole
Yeah.
thing is empty and it all just feels slightly mysterious. Like the whole thing is just kind of a facade, which was obviously building up to that big
Right.
reveal towards the end of the mission. And I think that
Yeah.
every part of their ships like do a really, really, really good job of that. Because it looks like
Yeah.
something, when it comes out, it's oh, they're here to save us, but there's something with it that's just there's gotta be a but there somewhere.
Right. Yeah. And I want to shout out to Mauricio Taurina, who made this model, and Mauricio also made the was it the Revelation, the kind of Cylon based star looking one, the battleship. He also modeled that, which I thought was a really cool ship. So yeah, I'm really it's been really fun to work on these Borg ships. I think I've said it before, but the way that I look at the Borg is they're a balance between order and chaos, right? The chaos of all the drones in the collective, um, balanced against the order of the brought by the Queen or whatever you want to call it, and then and that plays out in their ships, right? Because like from far away, the Borg cube is a perfect cube, seems like it, and then you get closer and you see, oh, it's all these pipes and this grid work and tunnels and
Mm-hmm.
um and tubes and things, and you're like, what the heck is that? And it's very chaotic and it's hard to understand right up close. And so when we started breaking this arc out at the very beginning with Al and Paul back then, um, it was like, okay, so if the Borg are a representation of this synergy or this relationship between order and chaos, then we can have the Prime Borg kind of be at the center of that. That's like the perfectly balanced point of it. And then you have the Etherians, which are like all order, right? They're this angelic, very clean, polished, heavenly look, but underneath there's still the ether, right? The ether is their version of the collective, but it's sort of there's no um and we have to Flo and I have to talk about this more because we haven't in a while, but with the ether it doesn't feel like it's a million or billion or trillion voices. It's still the ether is more like it's all been very homogenized into whatever the ether's will is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the order spectrum. And then as you play the new mission, you learn more about the Chimerans, which are on the other end, on the opposite side of that spectrum, and they're just like pure chaos. Um, and so it's really fun, like thinking about these different types of Borg and how they relate to each other and how they relate to the Borg philosophy of like like trying to obtain perfection. And what is perfection for Etherians is very different than what is perfection for like the Prime Borg or the Mirror Borg versus what perfection is. Like there's a line that Flo wrote in for the Etherean or for the excuse me the Chimerans that is just like perfection, like chaos is perfection, or the only perfection is chaos or something, which is awesome, because it shows that philosophy. And it was important in all of these to keep that thread alive of them being Borg, like that sort of obsession with whatever their philosophical understanding of perfection is. That was kind of like what we could grab onto to keep it all honest and grounded um, in a motivation, right, for each of these factions, because you can have the blue Borg or the purple Borg or the red Borg, right, but like that doesn't really it's not really interesting from a storytelling perspective. It's cool to have variety in this multiverse story, but like being able to spend time to really deep dive into what what can we learn about, like, by creating the Etherians and the Chimerans, then we can learn about how the Prime Borg is different. We can set that up in the story as a point of contrast, right? And that's what a lot of, like, when you're talking about villains versus heroes, the best relationships for heroes and villains are, we learn about the hero by how the villain relates to them or how antagonizes them or whatever. Like I think the best, easiest example is the Batman and Joker, right? Like those two, their relationship with each other and how the Joker sort of continues to manipulate Batman, but also knows that he needs Batman too. Um, is really interesting because you learn as much about Batman as you do the Joker in that relationship. And then in a Star Trek example, I think a great example of that is like Q and Picard, right? Although you might not say that Q is a villain, but I think we can. It's easy enough to say he's a villain, but like we learn so much about Picard by the way that Q antagonizes him and teases him, and the whole episode of Tapestry, right, is really about Q sort of playing a prank on Picard, but there's a lesson there, um, and and that's why those like relationships and stories are really successful. And so that's been really fun building out this multiverse Borg arc, and um, uh, and then seeing how all these different characters relate to each other and how they're different from each other. And I hope that people will eventually, by the time we're done with it, we'll come away with we'll appreciate the Prime Borg even more from all these like sort of contrasting experiences.
I will say this arc has given me a lot more insight into, like, I guess the different motivations of all the different Borg, because it's, easy to say, oh, they're Borg, all they're after is assimilation. But in this arc, you've kind of seen that that's kind of the case, but they all have slightly different ways, I guess, of approaching it. Like, you have the Prime Borg that are, kind of like the bread and butter. They want to assimilate everything into their collective, everything from all of these other civilizations becoming part of their just kind of one hive mind. You have the
Mm-hmm.
Mirror Borg, which are close to the Prime Borg, but they're a lot more, militaristic as a result of being in the mirror universe and everything, and the things that they can't just assimilate, they're totally fine with destroying, versus our Borg
Mm-hmm.
that will just kind of keep trying to assimilate stuff. You have the
Mm-hmm.
Control Borg where you throw in those sort of plot points from Discovery season 2, and it's still after information more than anything. Like, you see the Control Board specifically going for the Iconian Alliance's World Heart because it's this huge repository of information spanning back hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah.
And then you have the
Yeah.
Chimerans and Aetherians, which are kind of similar in what they're doing. Like, I feel like they're both end game versions of the Borg in that they've taken over basically all of their reality. And of course, the first thing that they thought of once they had taken over their reality is, oh, there's a multiverse out there. Why should
Right.
we hold our gifts to just our universe when
Right.
everybody can get in on this fun? And, I think that they kind of approach it from opposite ways. The Aetherians are harmony and order versus the Aetherians that is chaos
Mm-hmm.
through,
Or the
and the
Chimerans, yeah.
Chimeran, sorry. Chaos is everything. And it's been really cool seeing all of the different Borg factions being a part of this. I mean, a quick shout out to Flo and everybody in the STO lore hub over in the Discord, because the first time a Borg cube showed up in All That Matter was a huge thing that I think we talked about for a good long time, and what that could have to do with the story, because we hadn't seen the Borg, our Borg, in a while. I'd gone on streams a couple of times and, pieced together the timeline of when we've seen them. And the TFOs, I think, had shown a lot of that because we have the Hive TFOs, the ground and the space ones, and then I think about a year later in the game's chronology, we find out that the Borg Queen had transferred her consciousness over to the Delta Quadrant, where we deal with her one more time. And even that TFO ends with her talking after we destroyed the octahedron because she's obviously still not gone. But then
Right, yeah.
it was radio silence from the Borg until the Royal Flush TFO, where you have the Borg and you have the fusion cube. And I'm
Mhm.
not going to say too much more about that. I will just say that the new mission is absolutely awesome, and I think is setting up a lot of cool stuff. I'm trying to
Awesome.
navigate it
Yeah.
without saying
Right,
spoilers.
yeah. I
But
mean, it's no, go ahead.
I don't know. I was gonna jump
Yeah,
to the so.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I mean,
I don't think I have much to add. I mean, like, yeah, I don't want to spoil anything either, but I um it's been fun getting into the head of the Borg, getting into their heads collectively, and um and then I'm excited to see where it all goes from here.
all right. Well, I mean, I think the last thing I had were just the last couple of questions that the community brought up. But the big one was, what is your favorite starship to fly?
My favorite starship has always been the Manticore. I well, I Yeah, the Manticore. I love the Chimera and the Manticore. I was really pleased that we were able to work with the original designer of the Chimera, Jason Lee, who's actually a very good 3D artist. And Jason, he did all high poly artwork, but he learned how to make STO ships just so he could remaster the Chimera for us. And then when he did that, I remastered the Manticore because that's my main ship. And it turns out if you know how to model and you are the art lead on their, let's see, was I art director at this point when I did this? I think it was at least associate art director. But it's like, I want to do this. I want to get this. I think we remastered the Chimera because we were adding some new. Are we redoing the tutorial, or I don't know? Maybe we just did it because I wanted to. But anyway, I don't remember when that actually happened. It was quite a while ago. Um, but yeah, Chimera is my main, and or the excuse me, the Manticore is my main. And I did so. Jason Lee designed the original Chimera, and then I put a pod on it, and that's my contribution.
Pods make any starship design better,
Mhm.
and I will absolutely die on that hill because it's the truth.
Yeah, I think I love mission pods in general. They're a lot of fun. They add a silhouette, they add a sense of functionality to it. But I mean, what I love about this family of ships, the four nacelles are really cool. The kind of the sleek, um, the balance I always thought was really good on these ships, like having the kind of the very like having the saucer really high, but then having a hull. It feels like almost like a boat, which everybody knows I love boats in space with Space Battleship Yamato. And so yeah, I always loved the Chimera. I thought it was really cool. So if people don't know, the Chimera was actually originally a submission for the Design the Next Enterprise contest that got us the Enterprise F. But Jason um, put forward he called it the Magellanic class. Sorry, I had to think about how to say that. Um, that was his original class name for it. But um, when we decided to make it the lifetime sub, like we really liked the design. It didn't quite feel like an Enterprise, so it didn't win. But we held on to it, and when we decided to put it in STO, we renamed it Chimera because of the transformation thing. I mean, like, people. And I get why people think it's dated, or I say people think, I mean, like, yeah, like power wise, the it hasn't really aged well. But when we made it, like the watchword was like, hey, this is an expensive ship to get, right? This is a lifetime sub ship. It has to be super cool. We have to make it feel really cool and powerful. And so that's why it has that transforming thing to it, right? Because that was something that was really like a really cool feature that set it apart from other ships. And so we made it originally, it really was kind of top of the line, and it's just sort of it would be cool to revisit it someday from a stats perspective.
Definitely the vibe
I
I
don't know
got from this
when.
ship is the sort of
Yeah.
thing that an admiral would fly. Like this is where an
Hmm.
admiral would plant his flag if he wasn't,
Yeah.
on one of the super capital ships, something like an
Hmm.
Odyssey or a Yorktown or something. It would be on something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to. I mean, especially because this is the ship that I fly. I'd certainly love to revisit the ship someday. You know, there's a lot to do and a lot of things you guys want us to do. So we'll see what happens.
The next question I had, I realize, is kind of a potentially difficult one because you are executive producer now, but it was going to be, I think that question I've asked almost any time, but if you could add one ship to the game, what would it be?
Um, man, I mean, I've gotten the opportunity to add so many, like the Heritage Bundle was something I've wanted to do for a long time. The Timeless Legacy bundle, getting the Okinawa in the game, something I wanted to do for a long time. There are more Starfleet command ships that I would love to add eventually. But we've been to that well enough for now. I think we got to move on and do some other things. But you know, let's see some of that. I mean, like, honestly, the ship that I really want to add to STO is the NSCA Protector from Galaxy Quest. I've long had an ambition um, to do that. I would love to do it, and there is precedent. Star Trek Fleet Command did it. They had a Galaxy Quest event, um, and it's funny because this actually came up on the Mike stream I think yesterday. But you know, I'd love to do that someday. We'll see, one thing at a time. But I love that ship. I actually think it's a really cool design, and I think it would actually fit in really well in Stowe, and you wouldn't blink twice if you saw it. You know, um, I think people who knew would um, would get a kick out of it. And I also think what I would want to do if we did put the protector in Stowe, the way I would do it is. Um, have the sort of Galaxy Quest replica look, but then also, if we got permission from Paramount to do this, also do a version that's just straight up Starfleet livery, right, with the Delta and everything. So the people who like the look of the ship but want to preserve their immersion, you know, can do that. I think that would be, and it'd be really easy for us to make, you know, that version of it. So I think that would be a good way to handle it. But anyway, I don't know. That is very much a blue sky thing. There are no real plans or discussions about that at all. That's just something if I could snap my fingers and add one ship to stow, it probably would be that.
That would be so cool. I haven't watched Galaxy Quest in a while, but now I have a very strong urge to go back and watch it.
No, it's
I
a
really love the
fantastic
Protector. I
movie.
think it's a really cool starship design. I always love when, a show or a movie that isn't really just about the starship will sometimes just
Right.
introduce this really, really, really cool starship and then won't talk about it very much. I'm like, wait, no, I want lore on the ship. What is this thing? You can't just design this super cool thing and then
Hmm.
not talk about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that it was one of the things that made me really happy when like the Kelvin Enterprise A launched in Stowe. I have always maintained that one of my favorite scenes in just any Star Trek is that scene at the end of Beyond where that ship has its time lapse of it being constructed and you have the
Yeah.
theme playing in the background. It is one of the coolest things I have ever seen. I'm so glad I got to see that in theaters for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. And then obviously, we haven't gotten a Star Trek 4 or anything, and that was the last time we saw the ship until I think it showed up in one of the other Star Trek games first, but then it showed up
Hmm.
in Stowe and looked absolutely incredible. And it felt like almost like a payoff of, you know, getting to see it on screen for the 15 or so seconds it showed up and then having it in
Yeah.
Stowe. It made me so happy.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to do all of them, right? You kind of anything, any enterprise, we kind of have to make sure it gets in the stow eventually.
Yep. And we're in an ad break right now, so I'll just be flying around. But we are going to get ready
Mhm.
to wrap up. We've been going for just under 2 hours. This has
Yeah.
been so much fun. I guess before we go, talk a little bit about the update that's here now, season 35 that launched on Tuesday.
Yeah. Do we want to wait till the ad break
Yeah,
just started for me? So I don't know if
yep,
you want to
I've
wait till that's over.
got a minute left on my timer. It looks like.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Um, I'm hungry. I'm seeing an ad for a Subway sandwich, or not Subway, Firehouse subs. You're welcome, Firehouse. There's a free. I guess it's not free because you paid for the ad, and then I just mentioned it. Uh,
I'm definitely going to
Let
be
me take
getting
a break
food
here.
after
Sorry.
this.
hmm Yeah, I don't think I got a chance to eat lunch today. It's, it's a lot of meetings when you're executive producer.
I
All
know,
right,
at least from the
all right, we're
community,
back.
they've been super psyched to see you take over that mantle as executive producer. I mean, you've been a
Oh,
huge part of
thanks,
this game for so long, and you've been a great part of this game.
thanks. I mean, I I'm really excited about some of the stuff we got planned, but I hope people understand that like a lot of things about still aren't going to change, right? Right? Like and so we're gonna do our best to make the game better, to try new things and everything, um, but I don't want people to think that I don't want people to think that they wake up overnight and like every single thing they don't like about the game is gonna get fixed. Like I'm a little worried, like I'm worried about expectations. I'll be honest, but I'm doing my best. Everybody, Jeremy, everybody on the team is really pumped about this next stage, and we're really excited that the community's so excited. And there are certainly a lot of things we do need to improve about Stowe server performance. We need to look at the lithium economy, right? There's a big list. There's a big list of things we do intend to tackle. Um, but it is one thing at a time. We have the resources we have, and we just got to make a good game and hope you all show up.
I'd say that the
But
passion
anyway,
from the team has been
yeah,
pretty awesome. It's always so much easier to get hyped about stuff when it also feels like, you're watching the developers be hyped about all of this stuff coming, and hype is infectious.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
I mean,
easy to get
and we
excited about
are,
things when you see you guys excited about things and then everybody's excited. But it's awesome.
yeah. No, it's great. It's a privilege. It's always been a privilege, and I will say that was absolutely true of I don't want people to think that uh that the team before, like I have to give them their due because like the Cryptic folks from back in 2023, like that team also loved Star Trek and also was super knowledgeable and loved working on the game and everything. I think the biggest difference now is where like we would be even if that crew were still working on the game, we would still be just as excited and feel just as optimistic because the biggest change is Stowe's situation um, as this is a very business thing to say, but as an asset to Arc, right? Where we're at now that Arc is independent and they have the catalog they have, um, Stowe is a very important part of that catalog now. Whereas as part of the giant structure of Embracer, Stowe is pretty small fish, right? Um, and so that means that with us being in a more important part of that catalog in the ARC organization after ARC's gone independent, that means that um, there's more willingness to try new things. There's more willingness to just spend money on ads, which is really important for you guys. Like even if you already play the game, it's awesome for you that our publisher is advertising the game um, because that's going to bring new people in, right? It's really important for the health and the growth of the game. Um,
I
and
saw an
so,
ad on
so
Instagram earlier
Yeah,
today for the new
I saw an
season.
ad on Reddit. I was like, "Hey, it's a STO ad. That's awesome," and like, and we've all, I think if you've been with the game for a long time, um, we've all got into a kind of a comfortable cadence of this is what a STO release is. This is what, this is an episode of TFO, and it's fun, and we got it to be super polished, which I'm really proud of, and high quality, and like, man, both worlds, that update I think is probably one of the best updates we ever did. Um, Amazing episode, amazing environments, amazing TFO with the best of both world, Battle of Wolf 359 TFO, and then doing the Wolf 359 Memorial, as a bonus, right? Some really cool patrols and stuff like so. That passion has always been there, whichever version of the team you're looking at. But what's different now is with Jack as CEO. We have somebody who worked on the games himself, who has skin in the game for Cryptic as a company, has a ton of experience across the whole MMO industry, has a ton of experience with what I'd say, I don't know if you want to use legacy or venerable, aged, whatever you want to call them, like long running MMOs. Um, Jack's bringing a lot of experience with other games like that to STO and Neverwinter, and it's brought this sense of vitality and optimism, that hey, we can and should try new things, and we have a bit more runway and support from our publisher now because our position in the catalog is different, and so I went on that whole tangent because it is important to me to give credit to all the people who have worked on this game over the course of the game. I mean, I've been there pretty much the whole damn time, right? And it's always been like that. No matter who's working on the game, we've always been super passionate about Star Trek, always been super passionate about the missions and stuff that we're making. And I'm proud and pleased to say that hasn't changed, right? With the new team we have, everybody's very excited and proud and is very grateful for the opportunity to work on this game. But it's been, I mean, it's one of the reasons that I have been on the game and at the company for so long is like it's really a privilege to work with such kindred spirits.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, the team has always been awesome. And I've gotten the chance to get to know a few of you guys on the team over the last couple of years. And I mean, the passion from all of you guys has been absolutely incredible. I mean, I've been able to have a couple of interviews with you. I remember meeting Pundus and Scorpion way back when I was, commissioning art for my headcanon project, and they're both so awesome. Getting to talk with Flo about lore stuff in the Discord. And everybody on the
Mhm.
team I've worked with over the past 3, 4 years now have been, just great. And everybody is super passionate about the game. And it makes
Yeah,
me like
I mean,
really want to do stuff that's cool in the game too.
yeah, well, good. I mean, we want you all to have fun. We want it to be an awesome Star Trek experience for everybody, um and we're definitely going to keep that's what we're going to keep aspiring to, right? And like uh we've been through a lot of change. There's been a lot of different technical change, corporate change, personal change, and but we still managed to put out an episode like Curse of Phrygia, and so I'm really excited to see that as things settle down, I think we're only going to get even better, and we've got some really exciting and I hope surprising plans for the rest of this year that I hope people um, will be excited about once they see where we're going and what we're going to do to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. We have um, some pretty specific things, ways we want to do that, and you'll all be hearing more about that soon.
I'm excited. I hope everybody else is too.
Yeah.
Alrighty, that was all of the questions and stuff that I had. That was absolutely fantastic. Um, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up the stream here for the night. I want to take this opportunity to thank you again for coming on the air. This has been so much fun, and it is always amazing to get to host you and talk all things Star Trek. It's just amazing.
So
I cannot thank you enough.
I mean, I'm glad you all are having fun doing it, but can you imagine getting paid? Like this is like I got paid to do that. I got paid to ramble for 2 hours about Star Trek ship design. Like it can't be that. Yeah, and I want to thank too all the STO people, all the STO team. Thanks so much for watching. Jeremy, Flo, Pundus, Scorp, anybody else I missed. It's really, and of course my lovely fiance, Katrina. Hi, baby, I love you. I'll talk to you in a few minutes. Thanks so much for showing up.
Thank you. And thank you everybody in chat for coming in and watching this interview. Star Trek Online Season 35 Corruption is live now on PC and coming to consoles in March, so make sure to play all the new stuff. It's a lot of fun. But alrighty.
Awesome. Live long and prosper, everybody.
See you later. As always, you have been live with Endeavor Gaming, and remember to keep calm and game on.